Federal University of Ekiti, and I also serve within Afrinic as the co-chair for PDWG. I'd like to first re-echo what Fiona has just raised in terms of participation. I've been following remotely the IANA transition on the mailing list, and when it's time for comment period, I observed that the level of comments we receive that have been made from Africa is just so low. When you see a name, you know whether it's an African person or not. So it's easy to identify who is actually making comments. And I think we tend to leave the period of comments until we see face-to-face, and then we'll have lost the opportunity to make the comment. And we'll have lost the opportunity to actually get our voice added to the whole process. So I think it's important that we don't wait for face-to-face until we make our comments known. However, also on the issue of being shy, yes, maybe that's one of the reasons. I think maybe if you could have a group, just like Fiona suggested, where we can remotely collaborate on this and then have something that is more substantial on the wider and global list. Maybe that could help, because at least we shouldn't be shy amongst ourselves to discuss these things, even if we are shy to the rest of the world. Now back to some of my comments. I think the task that NTIA has given to ICANN, and which is also to the entire world, is a very big one. Multi-stakeholder, okay, why was this task given? I think it was right before we were saying that, okay, US is having a say or managing the road, and why should they be doing it? Now they are saying they don't want to do it again, they want you to do it. So now that they are wanting us to do it, we are now realizing that, oh, it's a big task to do. So it's like we are wishing that we had gone back, because it looks so complicated now. It was looking like it was going to be a simple thing, just like from that diagram, it was looking like just remove that NTIA and just everything should just flow. But it looks like it's a difficult task, and maybe it was also an intentional thing from NTIA too, because it looks like maybe they knew that we couldn't make it. But however, I think we need to prove to NTIA that we can actually do this, and that is why I think in the next 18 months, we should be able to come up with a proposal that is actually multi-stakeholder. That term of multi-stakeholder actually should, for me, I think it should just re-echoing what Professor Nee said. It should be inclusive. It should not be ICANN-centric. It should include everybody as much as possible in the deliberation and so on and so forth. And I will actually really recommend that we learn from some of the processes that were used in Net Mundia in collecting comments and so on and so forth, because that was kind of one of the inclusive environments that I have known. However, the actual solution should not be so complicated. I'm from Africa, and I know what it takes to participate in the existing system. So if we get a new process or a new body just performing oversight role, we need to participate in that, then we need to participate in the other one. We know what it costs. We don't have the resources. We are interested, even if we participate remotely, we know what it costs us to participate remotely. So I think it should be less complicated. We only need representations that are mostly concerned, who can also reach out to their community locally to perform the oversight. The oversight is actually not the main operation of the whole thing. And my other comment is perhaps it will also help the room to understand from prayer, if they could tell us what was the purpose of ICANN? Why was it set up? Because on the mailing list we've been hearing, take IANA function, separate it, take the GNS zone, we've been hearing things that has to do with breaking the existing system, splitting it up, separating it, making an organization separate. What was the purpose of ICANN actually? Maybe if we understand what the purpose of ICANN is, then we'll be able to really determine the next line of action. Okay, just one last one. Sorry. The last thing I want to say is to Pierre and perhaps to also the person that was talking to us remotely. We have made comment period. There was a comment period for the process, right? However, we've not received the revised version, and I read somewhere where it says the revised version will be presented and the steering committee will be inaugurated at ICANN 50. I think it's important that we receive the revised version before the ICANN 50, because that is how the community will understand what is going on. Most of us will not attend ICANN 50, and it's very important for us to make our contributions and actually see whether the community feedback has actually been integrated into the process. And that is very important. Thank you.
Thanks, Owen. And yeah, I think if Teresa is still awake, she's hearing you. I'm going to go directly to Owen. And please, you know what, I would love for you all to put all these comments on the mailing list that we're going to set up, because that will also help us to aggregate all the comments and make sure that we capture some of the most important things that you're saying here going forward to our dialogue and discussions in the region. Owen, please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne Rochelle. Owen DeLong, Hurricane Electric, and also on the Air and Advisory Council, though at the moment speaking strictly for myself. This is a very, very important process. While the IANA functions oversight role for the NTIA is a very, very, very limited role, it has provided a certain amount of adult supervision, for lack of a better term, to prevent feature creep in the IANA functions role and to prevent ICANN from becoming too onerous in its approach to that IANA functions role. At its heart, the role of the IANA functions part of ICANN is that of a recording secretary and little more. It is very, very important to the stability and openness of the internet that it not become more than that in its IANA functions role. Another important aspect of this is that if you look at ICANN as an organization historically, DNS and the domain name operations are the tail that has financially wagged the ICANN dog throughout its history. And if that financial situation is allowed to creep into the numbers side of ICANN management of the IANA functions, we could indeed be in for some very, very strange futures. To date, DNS works as DNS works and domain names work as domain names work, and it's been largely market-driven and controlled by a lot of intellectual property law and some very, very esoteric things out there in the world, whereas number resources have remained in the hands of the community through bottom-up stakeholder processes that have worked very well throughout history. They have not been thoroughly tested in adversity as yet. We are rapidly approaching our first serious test of how these processes hold up to adversity as we approach IPv4 runout. But I think they will hold up, and I think they will do well. And I think that in any process we look at here, we should try to preserve the process by which all of the IANA functions related to number resources are dictated by the unanimous consent of the RIR communities. Because if we allow that to change, we've given away the keys to the kingdom. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Owen. Next, Yaovi.
Bonjour, je parle en mon nom personnel.
Thank you. I'm talking on my personal name. The research of what the community is researching about this transition is that what's Afrinic want through this meeting. So who is giving us opportunity to bring our input. So we my proposal is important. And each time we go back home in our countries, we should have other sessions. This is fundamental. We can have a task group and work with the government, the people we know, so that we can sensitize them, so that we can talk about the topic. And most of the people, they do not understand the declaration, and it is important for us when we go home to talk about this, that we understand the declaration and we try to inform a lot of people. This is my first proposal. When we go home at the level of our countries, we need to encounter the operators, the government, so that everybody can be informed. So it is only in this way that we can contribute. The process is important, and everyone can have his input. At the level of Africa, we are not evolved. My name is Christian Bope. My first question is why Africans are not participating in the discussions. This is the first question we need to answer. The problem is that we have a complexity of context. For the accounting of ICANN, nobody didn't explain. So we need to explain to the community certain terminology, and the role of the Africanic is to explain to the African community all the concepts, and the community can at that moment participate in it. The second element is the procedure that we need to put in place. This procedure should be simple so that people can participate, and also to all it is all that concern the explanation. Thank you. Je vais revenir à mon panel. Et je vais donner la parole à Teresa. Il faut que les gens sachent où nous allons à l'avenir. Et quand la communauté doit savoir et assumer cette transition avant le sommet AIS14,
Sorry.
est-ce que vous m'entendez, Teresa?
Head.
Yes. Okay, yes, I did hear yes. You had a question with regards to the process?
Yes, exactly. People in the room.
As mentioned.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, exactly. Okay. Okay, I think we have an echo issue again. Let me just see if I can get that going. Okay. I think it's better. So with regards to the process, as mentioned earlier, the plan is that by the end of this week, the revised process addressing some of the key points that came up in the community discussions will be posted. And the key elements that will be coming out of that will be an overview of the community input, in relation to the composition of the group, and also a call to the respective community members to start their self-selection through their own internal processes, and that also, in addition, there will be an overview of community input on some of the topics relating to the work of the group for consideration and use by the group itself and how they want to operate. I was really, I would agree completely that there were many comments made on the importance of participation from the region and engagement and hope to see much of that coming from the region and through the selection mechanisms for both the NTI stewardship transition process and for the ICANN accountability process to have many of the experts and participants present.
Thank you very much, Teresa. So I'm going to come back to my panel. Sorry, I know we're over time, but we're going to try and wrap it up as quickly as possible. I'm coming back to my panel, and I would like, among some of the remarks that they will, oops, we have trolls. So among the remarks that they will, the last remarks that they will make for this panel, to also tell us a bit more about what they heard from the community. If they believe, for example, that, going forward, setting up a working group for the African community that will kind of shape a little bit the discussions and take it out there from, of course, the Afrinic mailing list to the, we have several other mailing lists. There's African mailing list, there is AFTLD mailing list, AFRENS. Everybody can participate to this, but how do we basically get the people who will be shaping up the discussion? Should we maybe take a straw poll here to just see how many are in agreement to just start in this type of process? And also, in terms of the cascade of accountability mechanisms that we have right now, we heard people say it is important that, yes, mechanisms that make all these organs accountable to the community stay. So what do we want to see in there going forward? I'm going to start with Dr. Nee.
Oops. Well, okay. For me, I think let's be inclusive, but let's also avoid capture. I don't think we can use one forum to solve all the problems. And in fact, there are many forums addressing many different issues. This forum, as I understood it, is deliberating principally on the stewardship transition. And if we can focus on that, perhaps we can follow the process that I believe Afrinic is about to make available, which should be as inclusive as possible. If there are some opinion leaders, they could help in the process of synthesizing the inputs, but I don't want to suggest that in another process, for another process, you will get lost. That's my particular feeling on that. And let's be careful. We should be always changing only one variable at a time, because then you can see the effects on these things. But if you start changing everything in such a highly connected system, I would be concerned about the outcome. So that would be the other thing I can add. And regarding the outcome, I'm being a bit, firm here. Supposing what you are trying to replace is, should there be a problem, last resort, then it's likely to require, legal thinking. And I'm not one. So if I say it should be multi-stakeholder, I am not being reasonable to myself. I would rather want the process of determining that thing to be multi-stakeholder, so at least I can get my views heard. But those who do that actual judgment may perhaps be of a different professional, stature than me. So if I say it has to necessarily be multi-stakeholder, and we have to look at proportions of them and so on and so forth, you end up, causing more problems. So it depends on the role or our understanding of the stewardship that was being performed by NTIA. And once we agree how to replace it, then let the professionals do that. If the role is one about coordination, as it says, in the description of some of the NTI role, then I want those directly affected to do that coordination, not me, the user necessarily. I can trust them. After all, they've run the system in a very stable way so far. So it depends on what we think that outcome is supposed to be, and then let those professionals do it. I'm not going to insist that everything should be multi-stakeholder to the hilt. I mean, I don't think that is what we want.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nee. Tawela?
Thank you, Anne Rachel, and thank you for all the different comments that came from the floor. I want to pick up, I think, on two things. One is the thing that Badru said about understanding what exactly it is that NTIA does, and then also going back to what Nee has said about separating the process from the outcome. I think the issue of understanding what NTIA does and how this then must translate in terms of the transition, I think it is very important. When one reads, for instance, the testimony of Ambassador Strickland to the Senate as far as this whole process, you get the sense that NTIA was perhaps had a very light touch approach in terms of the oversight function, that they didn't get overly involved in the operational day-to-day dealings and so on and so forth. On the other hand, when you read certain submissions that have been made in the last 2 weeks or so, again, I'm looking at discussions that are going on in the Houses of Representatives, there is an element or an issue of control that's emerging, where the discussion is now going back to the whole idea of whether the US must relinquish control of the internet or not. And I think we now need to begin to start unpacking what this really means. And it partly then goes back to the issue of process versus outcome. Definitely the process should be a multi-stakeholder process, but the outcome, we don't know. I mean, it could be a multi-stakeholder process, and then maybe again, it doesn't need to be a multi-stakeholder process. My personal concern, and I'm speaking personally now, is that, as has been pointed out, the oversight function to date has not been multi-stakeholder. It has been a government-led process. It was the United States government that had this oversight function. And yet, in this call for the transition, there is a very strong statement that says they do not want a government-led or an intergovernmental solution. And I think one needs to also start interrogating what that really means. Thank you.
Thanks, Tawela. Moaz?
Je pense que la partie multi-stakeholder ou multinational, je vais juste commencer.
Multi-stakeholder budget, I would like to comment what Storella said. The result, we are not going to worry about the output, the expectations. So we are going to discuss this in London, and we're going to have a consensus, and maybe we're going to adapt ourselves to all we have known on governance. We should focus ourselves on our objectives, priorities that is the development of internet in the continent. We need also to follow this process cautiously, and so that next time, if we have a debate, we need to be more inclusive, and we be part of this
engage the community. And I heard some of the questions, I posed some of the concerns. Some of the questions, for instance, about the definitions, what do we mean by, multi-stakeholderism, whatever, and stewardship. And that's also why the platform for discussion was for, the one that I can put up there. And I would say these sort of questions should have been put up, at this platform. Now, how are we organizing, in Africa so that we, some of the people say we don't just wait for, this Afrinic meeting and maybe the next one in 6 years or 6 months time, then we meet again and we can reconvene. And so that's boils down to what I was telling in the beginning, our homework, how are we really addressing this, homework? How are we really engaging, with the different sectors? And I say, my concern is how we really involve, the governments and then the private sector on those issues. So one or two quick things, Anna Rachel. I heard we were talking about a discussion list. Now, are we going to have, and I will suggest that we do have something that is quite holistic, meaning, are we having all the AF stars or all the, what I might call the communities, discussing on that list? Or are we going to have Afrinic specific lists dealing with the issue, CCTLD's lists? I would like to be clear about that one. And the other thing is, I see a role for the leaders of those FTAs. Adiel is here, and the FTLD chairperson is there. I would like to see their contribution, on those lists, so that they help certainly, understand the issues and the definition that we are talking about. For instance, we are talking about the stewardship, whatever, that's fine. There are also debates on the future of the internet, where we also need to be involved. So I would like us to really see how we are organizing, ourselves, not just waiting for one meeting every 6 months, to talk about things, and then again complain, put questions that no one is really listening to, because people are already posting those questions where you have to post them. So I would like us to really self-organize, do our homework, country level, regional level, and definitely form whatever position we are having. And then, of course, Tuela, the role of NEPAD and regional economic commissions, Africa, I think is fundamental here. And maybe we'll have to discuss this later on. And yeah, that was my comment.
Thanks, Pierre. We would actually, I think, and Adil might reiterate that, we would love to see all the regional organizations, involved in this so we can coordinate discussions. Adil?
Thank you, Anne Rachel, and thank you to all the panelists for their input. And I think we start seeing some conceptual approach to this discussion coming up from from what we had this morning. We start talking about the process should be multi-stakeholder, but the outcome. So already we are making a clear the separation here, which is something good. My conclusion will be this is just the beginning of the process. ICANN has not even yet released their own view of what the process is going to be. So what is going to happen is that Afrinic is going to set up a mailing list that will be open to anyone. It will be an open mailing list where this will be discussed. Some of the inputs that we have received here are going to be circulated on the mailing list. This background document will be circulated. The RIR collectively are also trying to work in coordinating our input as RIR into the system, because we are looking at this as well from the operational point of view, and we want to get our community, ensure that our community view is heard. I also want to say that people have mentioned several times the visibility of Africa contribution in those public call for comment. And maybe what we also need to look at is to have the ability to have diverse entry point of those contribution, not only one, because if you have one and other have 1,000, your one is completely diluted in all of them. Maybe that is also something that we need to think about. The engagement part is very important. Afrinic will be able to do as much as it can. The NEPAD, ICANN, and other will do at organizational level. But I think each of us, we have the responsibility as well, going back, to explain what exactly we are talking about here when we are talking about the IANA function oversight transition. What is expected as input. We have to keep it as open as possible. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. We have to let the process go. It is bottom up. We have to listen to what the community is saying and try at the end to conceptualize it, to send it into the global process. Our voice needs to be heard. Larry Strickling tell me specifically that move of the NTIA, among other, is to satisfy a demand from developing country for their engagement. So if that is clearly set and that is one of the goals, we should show that we can live up to that challenge. We can live up by contributing, because we have been the community that has been calling for this for a while. So now that we have the opportunity, we shouldn't miss it. So that's what I'm going to say. Afrinic is going to do its best to facilitate this input process or contribution process, but it shouldn't be revolved only onto what Afrinic will do. Each of us should be able to do the same at the local level, at the regional level, even at their small community level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please help me give a resounding applause to our panelists. And to you all, really, for participating. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for listening. And I'm really hoping that this is just the start of the discussion. Apologies again for having taken all the time for your coffee break, but given that everybody was coming from breakfast, I hope you're not too hungry. So getting out of here, again, as Adiel said, for Afrinic, we're going to set up a mailing list. We will the video of this proceeds will be online, this one specifically. We will have all the notes that we've taken, and you can basically listen to the video yourselves and contribute to the discussions, even on the mailing list that you are familiar with, or start your own processes at home. It's only starting. Please stay engaged. Thank you very much for coming this morning.